Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Big at the Back podcast, episode 11. You can hear my beautiful voice to start the podcast this week because Tom isn't mentally ready to talk about fantasy football after the weekend he's just had. But he is here with me. How are you, Tom?
I have never been better. Oh, am I kidding? Oh, what a terrible, terrible week. We should all stop. This is a stupid game played by stupid people. No one takes it seriously. And Luca Digne can start off back to Everton where he was rubbish. And at least he's left his rubbish there. At least his rubbish hasn't left. Oh.
Are you okay, mate?
Yeah, it's one of those weeks where everything that could go wrong did go wrong from an FPL standpoint. And I think it went wrong for so many people. So I'm not alone. And I've dropped about 30,000 places-ish. So the slide continues. In the last 8 weeks, I've gone from about 11K all the way down to 112 now. But at this point, I don't... we spoke about my transfers and my squad last week. I don't think I'm necessarily making terrible decisions in theory. It's just... football, man, it's unpredictable and it's really been biting me in the arse over the last 8 weeks or so.
It really is. We've been talking about this for like the last month or so, really, how it's those 50-50 decisions that really come back to bite you if you don't get them right. Like, if I look at my week and what I did with my transfers, I wanted to get Doherty out to get James in, which I ended up not doing because I also wanted to get an attacking Spurs player in, and I wanted Son or Kane. I wanted one of them, but I couldn't afford Kane, so I had to get Son. And then last minute, I decided to captain him, and it's just those sorts of things. It's just I'm on a hot streak at the moment, and you're on the complete opposite end of that spectrum.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. It's like betting at the moment, isn't it? Whenever you're in a hot streak, I'm in a cold streak, and vice versa. Luckily, my hot streak in football betting seems to have happened right when your hot streak in FPL's happened. But yeah, the winning money is nice, but it's not as fun as winning FPL points when you're losing them. And at the moment, that's just not happening for me right now. Every decision seems to be going. Just who could have predicted Luca Digne going off injured after 10 minutes again? I can't wait to be rid of him. And he may get a stay of execution. We'll speak about that in a bit. But in general, I don't think I'll be playing him again, even if he's just on my bench for the rest of the season.
Well, they've got some nice fixtures coming up. Not to tempt you, but it's more at the back end of the season. They have the good fixtures. So
yeah, I think they've got a double win 35 or something. But we'll get to that. Why don't we talk then about what was a absolutely crazy weekend of football? I say crazy because no one knew what was going on at any point. It was absolutely bonkers. I think as you said before the pod, we'll go over the important or fun games. We won't bother with Brighton Norwich as a general rule. But the others, I think there are some really good points of discussion. But while we're here, come on, I'm open. You can go on the attack.
I wouldn't do such a thing, would I?
That's all you've been doing all week.
I don't know what you're talking about. Prove it.
I mean, just WhatsApp screenshots. Anyway, I digress. If it was you in the same position, I'd be doing exactly the same thing. So totally fine. It's part of the game. But yeah, it's been a very painful few weeks in FPL. But it doesn't matter because football is absolutely balmy right now. And I'm genuinely really excited for this weekend's games as well. So let's start by reviewing some of last weekend's fixtures, only the ones we actually care about and want to talk about. And let's start with the early kickoff, which was Liverpool 2, Watford 0. Now, it was a much changed Liverpool side. Mo Salah didn't do anything against Watford, which was surprising because Watford played very well. It's one of the best I've seen them play. And Liverpool not quite with it, but ground out the results and got the job done. So did you manage to watch this game? I think you did, right?
Yeah, I watched it. Obviously, there was the will Trent play, will Trent not play? There was always that there was worries from both of us that Salah might not start as well, given the fact that he'd played 120 minutes in midweek for Egypt. So there was always that sort of little worry about it, which isn't why eventually I took the captaincy of Salah, which we'll talk about a bit more. But yeah, obviously no Trent in the starting lineup. Gomez came into that right back spot where he's obviously not as effective as Trent going forward, but still bagged himself the assist. Like you say, Watford played really well. Best I've seen them play in a while. I did sort of feel that when you guys got that first goal, it could be the floodgates would open a bit, but they stuck at it well. And then obviously it was stayed 1-0 until quite late in the game when Fabinho converted that penalty. I think it was just typical of this week that Liverpool got a penalty after Salah had been taken off.
Yeah, I think that sums up the week perfectly for me and FPL. But from a football perspective, I think we did the job and we actually managed to rest so many of our key players as well, because we've obviously got 2 very big games in the Champions League against Benfica and the small matter of that Man City game coming up. And that is going to be absolutely huge. And we'll speak about that a little bit later on. Watford, I think going forward, I quite like the look of them. I think Ismaila Sarr could be a real option as we move into the run-in, because that was the best I've seen them play. And if it wasn't against Liverpool, if it was against pretty much any other team bar City, I think Watford may have got something attacking-wise out of that game.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I do find it kind of funny how you go back a couple of months ago and we were all talking about Dennis and King and who can we get in the team, which one's the better one? Now neither of them are starting. It's like, what a wild ride it's been for them this season.
Watford are incredible. And I wouldn't be shocked if they stayed up this season. If you look at the teams around them, I think they may have what it takes to pull it through in the last, and their fixtures aren't awful. Looking at their upcoming games, I mean, the run-in's not too bad at all compared to some of the other teams. If you look at, they've got, I think, Leeds and Brentford, then Man City away. But then you've got Burnley, Crystal Palace, Everton, Leicester, and you're playing Leicester at home, and we'll get to them in a bit. But I think they've got some really winnable games coming up, and I think I'd fancy them to stay up at the moment.
They've definitely got potential to claw their way out of it. Obviously, there's the big game tomorrow night as we're recording this, Everton-Burnley, which is huge for that bottom 3 and how that's going to shape up come the end of the season. But yeah, like you say, their fixtures are very favourable. You're right off City and Chelsea, basically. Anything you get out of them is a bonus. But the other ones, they've definitely got potential to be picking up some points there, especially the way they've been playing. Like you say, Sarr, Cucho's come in up front and scored a few goals as well. If they can sort themselves out a little bit more defensively, because although they look quite good against Liverpool, it's been the lower teams that they've really been struggling to defend against. So I'd like to see them stay up, to be honest with you. I think it'd be a good story after getting through the 3 managers in a season, which seems to be the Watford way of late.
Yeah, completely. It'll be very interesting to watch over the next few weeks. I mentioned for Burnley versus Man City as well, 2-0 to City. Again, like Liverpool, they just got the job done. Good goal from KDB in particular, and Sterling looked really good despite missing that glorious chance in the first half. Did you manage to catch any of the game?
Yeah, so this was one of the 3:00 games I was keeping an eye on. I think City just did what they needed to do. Burnley away is always a potential banana skin, even this season when they haven't been at their best. It's just a place that can throw up some interesting results. They've been growing the grass extra long there to try and sort of a bit of underhanded tactics, really. But against a team like City, you do anything you can to try and get anything out of it. But City were just professional. They did the job. And for Burnley, the Weghorst trap is in full force after picking up a yellow card.
Well, I think you sent me the picture, actually, just remember seeing Weghorst get a yellow card and just flashbacks to Denis from that double when everyone captained him. But with Weghorst, he's still got Everton to play, and we'll come to Everton in a bit. But I don't think anyone brought him for the Man City match. We brought him because 5 games in 3 game weeks. One of them was against City, so 1 or 2 points, it doesn't really make a difference there. But I would still fancy him to return something against Everton.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all. And like you said, we'll talk about Everton a bit more in a bit. But it's this game. I think they have Norwich in 32. That's next week, isn't it? And then they double again in 33. So that's why you're looking a little bit longer term. And depending on how this Everton game goes, I am still very much considering getting him in for those next 2 game weeks.
Have you not got Weghorst then? You've missed out some bouts.
Yeah, I didn't see it as for this week. Didn't see it as a big transfer. I'm hoping Everton can keep him quiet. So I feel really vindicated.
Well,
I have no confidence in them.
Yeah, I was going to say we'll get to that in a bit, but I'm probably going to keep their course until the end of the season because their upcoming fixtures after Everton are Norwich. Then you've got the double of West Ham and Southampton. Then you've got Wolves at home, Watford away, Villa at home, Tottenham and Villa in a double, and then Newcastle at home. So I think Burnley's fixtures, without Weghorst, he could really start going off in those fixtures. They're really looking quite nice. Admittedly, it's Burnley. They're a bad team, but you still fancy him to pick up some goals there.
You feel like if they're going to get anything, it's going to be through him one way or the other, whether it's goals or assists. But at the same time, yes, it was City, but that's now 4 games without a goal in the league for Burnley. So they've got to start up in it soon.
Yeah, and admittedly, I have Wout Weghorst in, so given how I seem to be a curse at the moment for all of my fantasy assets, he's probably not investable. Looking at City, I think we're all in on Cancelo. A lot of people I've seen on Twitter looking to double up on City assets, particularly at the back, which I'm a bit uncertain of. People going for Laporte. It was on the Always Cheating podcast. I heard that Cancelo, since game week 20, has had 1 assist and no goals. So 1 attacking return in the last 11 game weeks. Is he a better option than Laporte, or are they expected to get around the same?
It's so tough, isn't it? Because let's be honest, most of the time, unless they're playing a big side, you're expecting City to keep a clean sheet. Cancelo has got that ability to make things happen. He drives forward, he does get forward, he has chances, and you expect him to make something happen, whether it be getting down that left-hand side and crossing balls in, or sometimes picking up balls on the edge of the box and shooting. Like he's got that in his locker. I don't see that necessarily that doubling up on City defenders is a bad idea. It's an expensive way of going about it, but obviously I'm very much big at the back at the moment anyway, so I just don't see where I'd squeeze him in at the moment. You obviously got Diaz is obviously a shout as well, despite his injury worries. I'd be looking. It's easy to say looking at City attacking assets at the moment, but obviously the rotation risk is always there. Champions League, FA Cup still in it as well. Sterling looks good at the moment, but you never know whether he's going to be playing one week to the next. It's just really hard to back City assets unless they're nailed on. So Cancelo seems the obvious one for pretty much everyone.
Yeah, and something I remembered as well is Cancelo seems to mop up bonus points as well.
Yeah, definitely.
If you don't score, then you'd probably expect Cancelo to still get some bonus. Cool. Something I remembered as well, we moved on from Liverpool quickly, but the Mo Salah conversation. Some people, well, a lot of people on Twitter are selling Mo Salah or saying that he's not a good asset for the rest of the season. Now, I'm heavily biased as a Liverpool fan, but to those people, I say you're stupid.
I mean, I'm heavily biased against Liverpool, but unfortunately, I have to agree with you. Like, he's been the top scorer in the league for the last sort of 3-4 years. He's been the top scoring FPL asset for that time as well. One bad game does a bad player not make.
Yeah, completely. And people are complaining because in the last 10 weeks, he's got as many points as this player or this player that's not that good. That's only 5 million. And it's like, he's been away at AFCON, you morons. Like, of course he hasn't got as many points because he hasn't played. I mean, if we go back to the double just a few weeks ago, he got 28 points. So I think if you're considering selling Salah, then you're putting yourself at risk, in my mind. And admittedly, again, I've been in freefall mode for the past 5 or 6 weeks, so don't necessarily come to me for advice. But Matt's going the opposite way, so probably wouldn't even consider selling Salah.
And if you look at those fixtures they've got coming up after City as well, United look terrible at the moment. Everton look terrible at the moment. And then Newcastle obviously down there in a scrap. So like you can see him hauling in quite a few games coming up. The other person that's struck me, obviously Jota got a couple of returns at the weekend. Did you know, since he made his debut in the Premier League, no player has scored more headed goals than Diogo Jota? That's
incredible considering he hasn't played half the games.
And he's not a particularly big man, is he? He's like, what, 5'10", something like that?
No, but he's got a tremendous leap. Like if you watch him go to those headers, his timing is exceptional. And realistically, I haven't seen a player leap that well from attacking wise for headers since Cristiano Ronaldo was doing it back when he was a good player. He's not now, but back when he was.
He still has a good leap on him.
Yeah, he still has a good leap on him. But I think that's the kind of comparison with Jota in the air because he is tremendous. Jota, I think he was joint top for shots with one other player, who I'll quiz you on in a minute this game week, with 8. Actually, this is a nice pivot. So who do you think was top for shots this game week alongside Jota?
It better not be Ian Nacho.
No, Rudiger. Rudiger for Chelsea.
That guy loves a shot.
So let's pivot on to Chelsea then, because honestly, this hurt me just as much because I had James and Rudiger and seeing him concede 4. Rudiger obviously he had no right to shoot or score from there. Absolutely ridiculous. Quality goal, but just ridiculous. And then Chelsea, when they play 4 at the back, just can't defend for love nor money. I don't know what Tuchel's trying, but they need to play 5 at the back of all times because as soon as they go to 4, they fall apart. And this was no exception.
Yeah, like the switch to 4 made no sense. Like you say, it just doesn't work for them. It leaves them too exposed. You've got Thiago Silva there who hasn't got the pace to be able to work in a 2-man back, like defensive centre-half unit. You've got the fullbacks like Azpilicueta, who's getting on now, hasn't got the legs that he used to have. So they need that extra man in the back just to deal with things. And then they've got the likes of James and whoever they're playing this week on the left to really make things happen going forward and then have the legs to get back as well. But still, they went 1-0 up. You expect them from then to see the game out, and they just completely capitulated.
Yeah, they were horrendous. Ivan Toney, by the way, had an exceptional game. I know he didn't necessarily get the returns, but from a football perspective, he was the best player on the pitch by a country mile, and he was absolutely spectacular. I know Eriksen got the goal, but I actually think Mbeumo looked better as an FPL asset, and I thought he looked really good. Is that a trap we could see ourselves falling into again, potentially?
I'm not going back there. I'm not. Not again. No, never. But yeah, I still think if I'm going for a Brentford asset, it's probably going to be Eriksen. He's just class. And this is no slight to Brentford. He's too good for Brentford.
Yeah, he is.
Early in the season, they had some success, and it was their wide players that were really doing the business, coming in off those wide areas. Like Mbeumo was often quite out wide right and cutting in and making things happen. They didn't really have any creative player in that centre. So opposition players figured it out and the managers figured it out, shut off their wide players, and you pretty much beat Brentford. Now they've got Eriksen in. They've got someone that creates things in there, which obviously then draws players in and gives their wide players, again, like Janelt, who obviously had a good return this weekend, coming in off that left-hand side. So he just gives them a completely different dimension.
Yeah, agreed. I think Eriksen is absolutely wonderful. The last 3 games of the season are Southampton at home, Everton away, Leeds at home for Brentford. So I think if you're going to invest, it's that time. It's a shame they don't double up in any of them, though. Or as it stands, they don't double up in any of them, which is a bit of a kick in the teeth. Because if they did, I'd definitely be looking at investing in Christian Eriksen for sure.
And they won't double up, because they've only got 7 games left. So that is all of their games left to play.
Well, looking at what other games are worth talking about then. Leeds, Southampton, I didn't watch it, just don't care. It doesn't seem like a fun football match to watch. And it just screams 1-1. And if you'd have said to me Leeds, Southampton 1-1 before this game took place, I'd have said, right, I could have told you that a million years ago.
Yeah, what a good free kick from Ward-Prowse. That was about the highlight of the game. I don't understand why Leeds are still playing Dan James through the middle. I just don't think he's a good enough striker in the Premier League. It's not as though he's creative enough. He doesn't make things happen. He's not a target man. He's quick, but he's just not actually any good at being a number 9. You get him on the wing. Start Gelhardt if you're in charge of Leeds for me.
Don't know what you're talking about. Dan James, world class. I love him. Pace merchants. That's what Dan James is. He's just got nothing else about him. I don't think Gelhardt's a good player either, but yeah.
I think he's got more about him as a striker. I don't think he's a good player, but I think he's a better striker. He's a target man. He can make things happen.
Big shout out as well for their 1 millionth week in a row, no returns from Broja.
And he won't be getting a return this weekend either because he can't play against his parent club.
Exactly. So keeping strong. I definitely made Broja into a great fantasy asset. Next game to touch on very briefly, because I just find it boring and in this case upsetting. It's Wolves 2, Aston Villa 1. And the less said about this game, in my opinion, the better.
Watkins should have had a hat-trick.
Yeah.
He picked up the one goal and got lucky with that. It was a penalty off the inside of the post that just about crept in, but he could have had a hat trick. I think Jose Sarr had a good game. He kept him in it at times. It's definitely saved them the 3 points. But like I say, it wasn't it wasn't the most entertaining game. Coutinho he's so integral to this side, but if you keep Coutinho quiet, you keep Aston Villa quiet. And they built so much of their game around him, which just doesn't make any sense when he's a player that's there on a 6-month loan and not necessarily going to be there next year. Don't put all your eggs in one basket for a player that's probably not going to be there next season. And then I won't mention Luka Dean.
Yeah, that hurts. I think Villa and Wolves, both teams, are kind of on the beach now, aren't they? Neither have anything to play for, really. In terms of
Wolves could sneak into that top 6 potentially, but they really need everything to go their way. I find it really funny if they finished above Man U.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Well, that's a nice pivot because let's talk about Man U Leicester. And Gary Neville's podcast talked about this game and said he thought it was a Soccer Aid match because the quality was that low. So before we go into Man U, Leicester, James Maddison playing in the right of that front three looks really good. And Ian Nacho got his goal, leads the line for Leicester, gets a goal. He is the best striker in the Premier League, the only one you should be considering. He's better than Harry Kane and is the greatest player we've ever seen. I'm still not going to get him in because I don't want to curse him.
I mean, how do I follow that up?
There's nothing you can say. So let's seriously talk about Leicester though, because a lot of people have Barnes, a lot of people have Maddison, and their double in 36 looks like the tastiest double you could possibly imagine. So I think moving forward, Leicester are really, really an investable team, particularly James Maddison.
Yeah, I mean, they've got 3 doubles between now and the end of the season, and you can see them getting good returns in each of them. Newcastle and Everton, admittedly both away, but that's in 33. 36, the best double you could probably hope for. Everton and Norwich both at home, and then again in 37, it's Watford away and then Chelsea. So not such a good last fixture, but those 3, there's probably a rotation risk in here somewhere, but I am definitely going at Maddison probably this week or next week, and I am tempted by Ian Nacho.
I'm just going to send you loads of YouTube highlights. I think he should be the one losing the line for Leicester. Jamie Vardy's like 84 at this point. Ian Nacho's still youthful and still top quality. I'm really, really going to be considering bringing him in for Weghorst from 34 onwards. Something to be said as well for Leicester at the back, because they've got so many fixtures. I think there is value there. I said it last week, but I still think Schmeichel is good value potentially.
Yeah, he's always one for saves as well. Like, he made 4 saves at the weekend, so he's picking up points there. I just don't know. I don't think I trust him enough to keep clean sheets at the moment. They just seem to be very leaky. If I look at the table, they have conceded 47 goals in 28 games. So that is quite high. That's more than any other team until you get down to Brentford in the table, and more than obviously every team that's above them as well. So yeah, it doesn't scream to me that I want to be loading up on any defenders. They're not big enough for me at the back,
but they are big enough in attack, and that's where we need to go because Ian Nacho and James Maddison, I think, are the picks of the bunch at the moment.
Yeah, obviously, and you've got Maddison who's on set pieces. He had his goal disallowed at the weekend, probably rightfully so. But I only saw the first half of this game before I went. I went out somewhere Saturday night. Can't even remember what I did now. I went out for dinner. But yeah, so I saw the first half, which was possibly giggling squid, lovely bit of Thai food. Missed the first. So I saw the first half, which was possibly the worst 45 minutes of football I've seen this season as a neutral. And then I missed when the game actually kicked into life, which was really nice.
Yeah. Manchester United, they've got a double in 33, and I'm probably going to be bringing someone in. Maybe I'll bring in Fred. Like, genuinely, he's the only player that seems to be playing well for Man U at the moment, and the rest of them just awful. Ronaldo illness, okay, fine. But Man United are horrendous at the moment, and they're not getting any better. And there's noises coming out this morning about how half the squad aren't inspired by the Ten Hag approach. And it's like, this squad is responsible for the worst season they've had in the last 30 years. They don't get a right to be upset or angry by a new manager. They don't get a voice in this. And I just think it's a really, really toxic club, group of players, and group of individuals. Admittedly, I'm looking from the outside and probably listening to Gary Neville too much, but I think the players there are they've recruited so badly for so long. And what on earth was Rashford doing on the bench? He's had 3 weeks of rest. He's been left out of the England squad. There isn't a recognised striker except for him, and he was left on the bench. Like, you'd have thought Man U as a club would have at least got behind Rashford after being left out of the England squad. But no, it's like they wanted to kick him to the curb as well. And admittedly, he's been rubbish for like 18 months. But if there's ever a time to give him a shot, it's then, and they didn't bother.
It's crazy, isn't it? I think this is a club that, come the summer, they need to get this new manager appointed as soon as they can, and he needs to be given the complete backing to overhaul this squad in any way he sees fit, because at the moment, you just can't see it going well.
What players from Man U would you keep if you're looking at a starting 11 for next season?
Sancho. You've got to keep Bruno. He's just signed a new contract there, so he's staying. De Gea, probably Shaw, but he's not inspiring.
No chance would I keep Shaw. I think Varane is the other one.
Yeah, Varane stays, but other than that, I mean, I don't mind McTominay, but he's not like a Man United stature player.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a Nicky Butt-esque player. But he's never going to be a Roy Keane-esque player.
The way he's been playing lately, Fred deserves a shout as well, because he's the only one that seems to be really making things happen.
Yeah, but he is a terrible footballer. Let's be very clear. Fred is not a good footballer. He's just the only one actually trying at United. But yeah,
is he more or less terrible than Kai Havertz, though?
Less terrible than Kai Havertz, as you've established. I mean, Havertz could have got a hat-trick at the weekend. Absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, he could have done. So you are maybe a bit more justified. But yeah,
I did retweet my original tweet just after he missed a sitter. I was like, now seems a good time to put this back out into the universe.
Tries to justify it after being so hard. Cool. Let's move on to the Sunday games then, because we could wax lyrical about Man U all day. 2 games to cover. I stopped watching the Spurs match at halftime because I was just angry, and then you just kept tweeting me updates, which made me even angrier. So why don't we start there? Spurs 5, Newcastle 1.
I really enjoyed watching this game.
Great, really, really good. Newcastle, I think it's a blip for them because they did look really good, especially in that first half. I didn't watch the second, but I don't think they've really got much to worry about. Spurs played brilliantly. It was just making me angry, so I had to stop. But great game of football all round, I thought.
Yeah, definitely. I would like to see, and I in no way have the intention of going back and looking at these stats, but a team that scores 5 goals, that all goals were scored by a different person and all goals were assisted by a different person. So I like that. But yeah, I mean, Spurs look fantastic. It's when this Conte system works, it works really well. And obviously we saw this on Sunday afternoon. Doherty and Emerson both getting on the score sheet. One of the goals was Emerson's goal assisted by Doherty. So it's when this system really works. But the way Spurs play it, it works really well. They drag players out of position. And they did it against West Ham. It's so obvious. What you should do is sit deep, let them have the ball in their third and into your half, and then contain them. But the way they play it, and Kane's very good at what he does, is they drag you out. So Kane will come deep to pick up the ball like he does, and one of your centre halves will go with him, which then draws your full back in, and then that leaves space on the wing for the wing back to get in behind. And that's what they did so well. And then if you do give Kane the space and stay back, he'll ping a 20-yard ball over the top to Son and find him every time. So it's just so good when they play like this. And I hate to say it as someone who hates Spurs.
Kane was man of the match that game, and it didn't really translate into fantasy football terms, but I think he was sensational. And look, by far and away, Trent is the best passer in the Premier League, but Kane is probably rivaling KDB for second now. He was sensational on the ball, and I think can probably consider himself unlucky to have only got 1 assist in that match because he was really good. There's always the Son versus Kane debate, and I know you've got Son at the moment, I've got Kane. Personally, I think overall Kane is the better option because he's on penalties, but Son has really damaged me recently and really helped you. So I'm happy to say I'm probably wrong in that thinking.
The thing is, I don't think there's a right and wrong answer. I think they're both very good assets. It's just...
You can't own both though, right? Because it's Spurs and they do tend to go a bit Spursy. So in my mind, you can't... Owning both is a lot of money to be invested in a side that can go Spursy at any time. So I think you can own one or the other realistically. And for me, it's just happened to be the wrong one recently.
Yeah, I don't think you can own both, especially with... It would be crazy to do this, but we have seen earlier that some people are crazy. I think you can only do it if you drop Salah. And I think you'd be mental to do that on the, like you say, a team that can go full Spurs at the drop of a hat, especially with how much... We named our podcast after it. Going big at the back has been such a viable tactic this season that there's so much money being invested there that you haven't got that extra to go 3 premiums up top.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, Spurs though really good. I think Kulusevski was fantastic again. Only 1 assist, but he's so powerful and so strong. He just adds a completely different dimension to that Spurs attack. So you've got Son, who is Son, Kane, who's dropping deep and doing Kane things. Kulusevski balances it out so well. What a signing. But Antonio Conte, every Premier League club had the option of going in for Conte, and only Spurs did. Everyone else, apart from Liverpool and City and West Ham, to be fair, are probably feeling a bit red in the face right now because he has been fantastic for Spurs, as we knew he would be, right?
Yeah, I think... Man United will definitely be regretting not going for him when they really could have done. Seeing how he's sort of turned Spurs' fortunes around after their poor start to the season. So, yeah, they've been fantastic. Like you say, Kulusevski has been a fantastic signing. He really does link up that attack very well. You get the 3 of them playing all within about 20 yards of each other at the time because the wing-backs are getting on so advanced and just pinning teams back in their own half. So, I've been really impressed. You still feel like it could go full Spurs at any time. There's always that just hanging over it. But my favourite thing about this game was all of the bonus points went to players that I own.
I knew that was coming at the end.
Going back to the Kane v Son thing.
Yep.
No player has scored more Premier League goals in 2022 than Harry Kane. And no player has assisted more Premier League goals in 2022 than Harry Kane. So it's not as though he's a bad asset to own. Actually, the only one of the people that's got on the same amount of assists as him in 2022 is Kulusevski. They've both got 5.
Worth noting as well, Son has the most goals for any player at home in the Premier League this season. But Kane, I think you tweeted me or you said something the other day, Kane always performs much better away. Son always much better at home just because the way they play slightly differs. But that might be worth keeping an eye on if you're going to do the hokey-cokey with them. We also, the North London derby, I'm going to skip the West Ham match. We'll come back to it because believe me, lol. But I think it's worth talking about this. Palace 3, Arsenal 0, because the North London derby is yet to be rescheduled. And that's going to be a crucial game because Palace looked awesome. You said it last week about Mateta, and talk to me about, you were bigging him up last week, so you must have brought in Mateta and started him, if not put the captain's armband on him, because that's the kind of fantasy manager you are, right?
I brought him in. and I benched him. Second sub as well, so he won't come in for Trent. That honour will go to Broha, who, as we have discussed, is a fucking donkey now. So, yeah, like, as I say, I think Mateta is a good asset at the moment. Like, Palace looked fantastic last night. They completely played Arsenal off the park. And sometimes it's just, I think it's something about Selhurst Park. Like, when you get there, it's so easy to fall on the back foot. The crowd gets rocking. If you go 1-0 down, they're a very hard team to get back into a game against. So, fair play to Palace. The other thing that really surprised me was Joachim Andersen getting 2 assists in this game. And obviously picking up the clean sheet, clearing up the bonus points. And their fixtures are fairly good going forward. So, I think that it is the time to invest in Palace attackers.
I also loved that I didn't know Nathaniel Klein was still playing, and I noticed he plays in this game. So I thought that was nice, and he used to be a very good fullback. But yeah, nice to see him playing. As you said, Anderson played awesome. I thought Mitchell played awesome as well. He was great for us last season. But Arsenal, without Kieran Tierney and now without Partey as well for the rest of the season, honestly, they fell apart. And it was quite shocking to see. I really didn't see this result coming. I have Ramsdale, I have Saka. So I was quite shocked when this came about. Is this a blip or is this a sign of things to come?
It's very early days to say, isn't it? I would imagine it's probably a blip. But like you say, Tierney out for the season is a big loss for them. Partey, it will be a big miss. It really has put this top 4 title race really tightens it up. And like you say, we've still got that North London derby to come. It's actually on the when is it? I have seen it on the fixtures. It's on the 12th of May.
Which is
so
7, I think.
Yeah, it's game week 36. That falls into. So Spurs have a double that week of Liverpool away and Arsenal at home.
Good time to captain Harry Kane then.
Probably, but yeah, no, it's that is going to be a huge game. But if you look at some of the fixtures in between there as well, like Arsenal still have to play Chelsea away, Man U at home, and West Ham away in a row. So they're 3 potential tricky games. They've got to go on a good run from here. They need to bounce back next weekend.
Yeah, definitely. Well, one more game to cover then, and this is one we definitely want to cover because Everton losing 2-1 to West Ham. I know you've got a lot of thoughts on this, so I'm going to start. Cresswell with an awesome free kick. It was tremendous. But Jarrod Bowen popping up with a goal and an assist and all the bonus points as well. He's suddenly an FPL asset again, and I'm very excited. It depends. I'm going to wait to see how many minutes he plays on Thursday in the Europa League. I know you're going to that match. And depending on how he looks there, I'm really strongly considering bringing him in. And he's probably top of my list for players I'm bringing in for Coutinho this week, maybe. So that I thought he was awesome. Everton, I can't see them winning any games moving forward. That Holgate goal, it was a thunderbolt from Holgate, but he's got maybe one of them every 3 seasons in his locker. So I just don't see where any attacking returns are going to come from. And I think their squad doesn't really have any players who are scrappers, who can really grab you by the scruff of the neck and pull you through a relegation scrap. I'm thinking like Jimmy Bullard when he performed the Great Escape single-handedly for Fulham. Everton don't have anyone capable of doing that. And they've got a manager who's been lost at sea from day one, even though we'll still wait and see. So go on, give me your thoughts on this game and give me your analysis of both teams.
Well, I'll start with the Lampard thing. It's obviously going very wrong, and there's so many things you can point at him at. But at the same time, the players have got to take a long, hard look at themselves. 3 red cards in their last 3 games. They've ended the game with 10 men each time, and that is just, in this case, it was Keane, and it was brain-dead football. You're on a yellow card, going into a 50-50 and going to ground. You're asking for trouble.
He's 29 years old as well. You're not a young 22-year-old fullback. You're a 29-year-old Premier League centre-back who's moved to the club for big money. You should know what you're doing in those scenarios.
I think I saw a tweet about it, and I think it sums it up well. I think Keane is everything that everyone thinks Maguire is.
Yeah.
Like, Maguire's not great, but Keane is like Maguire turned up to 11.
Yeah, agreed. I also, big shout out to Matt's friend in the Curry League, who captained Michael Keane this week.
It was bold. It didn't pay off, so he sat there on -4 points. It's my mate Luke in the Curry League, he's sort of mid-table at the moment, so there's no danger of him getting up to the top of the league, and there's no danger of him finishing in the dreaded Curry zone. So I think he's just having a bit of fun with it now.
But yeah, I did enjoy it.
But yeah, like you say, Cresswell's free kick was a peach, and that was actually Keane's. No, it wasn't Keane's first yellow. That was for a tackle on Antonio. But again, Bowen won the free kick, so he picks up that assist. Great to see Bowen back. It's a massive boost for us as a club, especially, as you say, going into this massive game on Thursday against Lyon in the Europa League. Look, you ask about his minutes. I think he starts, he plays as much as he can. He got about 60, 65 minutes on Sunday, so I think he'll probably be getting a good chunk of the game on Thursday. But the thing with the way Moyes manages, unless a player is particularly struggling fitness-wise, he likes to base his side around like a strong core. He doesn't like to make many changes to that starting 11 if he doesn't have to. So I can easily see Bowen getting minutes again, and good minutes on Sunday against Brentford. Antonio looked a handful at times again. Like I say, it was him rolling Keane that got him his first yellow, and actually it was beating Keane to the ball that got his second yellow. He probably should have done better with the Bowen goal, but Pickford made an all right save. Yeah, we looked a bit open at times at the back, but like I say, Everton, it's so hard to see where they're going to get their points from at the moment. Van der Beek dropped out in the warm-up with an injury, which resulted in Holgate going into centre midfield, even though he's a centre-half, and Dele Alli's probably sitting on the bench going, what have I got to do to get in this side? No idea what's happening to his career.
I mean, we know what's happening to his career. He just stopped trying many, many years ago. But yeah, Everton, I think, are more likely to go down than either Watford or Burnley at the moment. I think I would have Everton getting relegated, considering their fixtures as well. I mean, if you look at the games for the rest of the season, Everton have Man U next, who, I mean, let's be honest, stoppable force, movable objects. But then they've got Leicester, Liverpool, Chelsea, Leicester again. Then they've got Watford, Brentford. Then you've got Palace and Arsenal. So I think they are in a bit of trouble. Well, not a bit of trouble, a lot of trouble for the rest of the season.
This Burnley game tomorrow night, as we're sat here, is massive. If they lose that game, you could almost see them going into full crisis mode. Like, I don't think they'd sack Lampard now, but
they can't.
You never know.
I mean, funny if they do, though, right?
Get Rafa back.
Exactly. So let's look at our teams then, because I, on FPL, have had a horror week, as we've discussed. So it's been very painful. But I think actually my team for this week is looking quite good. So I've got Ramsdale and Saka, both against Brighton. I've got Rudiger and James, both against Southampton. Hopefully James is starting that game. From Liverpool City, I've got Cancelo, Trent and Salah, so pretty standard. I've got then Kulu, Kane and Weghorst with a bench of Luca Digne, Bentancur and Broja. So my transfer plan is to drop Digne or Coutinho for someone else. If it's Coutinho, it's Bowen or Maddison. If it's Digne, it's going to be Joel Matip or Ben White. I think both are good options. If it's Digne, then the replacement will be the first sub. If it's Coutinho drops, then it will be Bowen or Maddison playing in the next game. So I don't really know which way to go with it yet. So I'm going to wait till the games on Thursday at least to finish, then see how I feel about the likes of Bowen, etc.
Yeah. You've mentioned you had a shocker week, but what's your tally for the week?
So if I've got 29 plus Kulu coming off my bench, so 6, so 35 minus 4 is 31, but it's all right because I've got Weghorst left to play at home to Everton.
I mean, I honestly almost do hope that it comes off for you.
I mean, banter if Weghorst just turns up against Everton. But I moved the captaincy last minute from Kane to Salah, and I didn't get punished too badly for it because Kane only got 1 point more. I think in general my week was a horror show. Everyone completely folded on my team, and I just had all the wrong players in the 50-50s, which, so sometimes you do get weeks like that, but it's been 5 or 6 in a row, as we said. So it's getting a bit tough to swallow, but I've just got to look at it with renewed optimism. I've got 3 hit in 33 that's going to completely revitalise me. So if I can pick up any momentum going into that from this week, then I'll be very happy.
Yeah, I mean, Salah didn't completely blank. He got a clean sheet.
Exactly. Captaincy for next week. I've got it on Kane at the moment, but I may put it on Salah. He's got 7 goals and 4 assists in 11 against City. And he's one of the few big players that does perform against the big teams. And Liverpool need to win that game. So Kane and Salah, for me, it's a toss-up at the moment. Or even, I don't think I'm bold enough to go Reece James because I'm just not, I just can't trust it. But that's where I'm thinking at the moment. So talk me through your team for the next week. What is it looking like? What's your game week looking like? And what are your plans?
I'm really torn. So at the moment, I'm sat with, like you, Ramsdale in goal, a back 4 of Rudiger, Doherty, Cancelo and Trent. I want to get James in at the moment, but I don't know what to do. If I do, it's probably going to be it probably has to be for one of the Liverpool defenders as a short-term thing just for this week, because I'm probably not going to start both of them anyway, just because it's City and it seems a bit of a risk to double up on defensive assets against City. So I think it'll probably, and if it's either of them, it will probably be Robertson that I drop for 1 week and then potentially bring back in. I was going to get rid of Doherty, but I just don't think I can now. So I feel like he's got to stay there.
You want midfield to run with Doherty? I think it's a good strategy, especially as he's just risen. Take the points and run, because Spurs, I don't think they've got that many clean sheets in them. And he's there for attacking returns, great, but they aren't going to play Newcastle at home every week.
Yeah, but I mean, look at their next 4 fixtures, or 3 mainly: Villa, Brighton, and Brentford. It's like you could easily see them getting attacking returns there, the way they're playing at the moment.
Yeah, and I'll probably have him in my free hit for 33. So I get that. I can see that.
Across the middle, it's at the moment Son with the armband. I think that's pretty much locked in for me for this week, alongside Salah, Kulusevski, and Saka. And then currently up front is St. Maximin and Mateta. In terms of transfer strategy, I'm really torn. Like I say, I want to get James in. Depending on how Weghorst gets on tomorrow night, I'm tempted to get him in probably for St. Maximin. I would be tempted to look at Bowen again, but there's no doubles coming up between now and the end of the season for West Ham. We've got European commitments. And I've not got him in at the moment. I think there's probably better assets I can move in that position. So, it'll probably be St. Maximin out for Weghorst if he performs well tomorrow night. I'll probably look at taking another -4 and then getting James in for a defender as well. So I'm really torn at the moment. And it's a Friday night deadline, so I've got to be thinking about it. And especially as I'm going to the football on Thursday night, I probably won't be too fresh on Friday. Yeah,
I think it's a little bit different, your situation to mine, because I'm planning my free hits in 33 still. So I can afford to get Jarrod Bowen in for the run of fixtures ahead and then drop him for a doubler in 36, 37. Whereas I think you're going to hold off your free hit till 37, which means, considering where you are at the moment, you probably want to be getting in a double player in 33. Slightly different positions. I'm not sure about the Son captaincy. Again, considering how much he's damaged me, I may not be in a position to speak, but it may be a case of taking the win and run. I think Salah is still a wonderful captaincy option. And Trent Alexander-Arnold had basically 3 weeks of rest before this City game. He could really show up and really go. Then again, he could be completely out of form and get absolutely killed by Sterling. So we're going to have to wait and see. But as far as the football goes, this weekend, I'm really excited for the game. Very angry about the VAR ref. Tierney, oh my God, awful. I think we've discussed it on WhatsApp and you've called me a little bitch numerous times. awful VAR ref. He's the VAR ref that has screwed us over against Tottenham. He's the ones that screwed Everton over for that blatant penalty against City. So and the whole refereeing team is made up of Mancunians in the Man City versus Liverpool match. Well done, Premier League.
All I hope, as a neutral going into this game, I hope that the referees have absolutely no impact on the outcome. I hope it's all settled between the players, and that's all you can ever hope for in a game. So, like you say, it is a very good weekend of sport coming up. If, like me, I'm not a massive golf fan, but it's the Masters this weekend, so I'll be tuning into that as well. The Grand National on Saturday, which you will be at.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously I've got the West Ham game against Lyon on Thursday night, which I can't wait for. The atmosphere there should be incredible. And then, of course, this rounds it off on Sunday afternoon with probably what's going to be the title decider.
Yeah, the biggest game of the season. However, if Liverpool win, I don't think that is decided because Liverpool are on a ridiculous run of form. I figure even if we beat City, we're still going to slip up towards the end of the season just because we haven't slipped up since about December. So I feel like it is coming. But
what would be typical is if you beat City and then lose to Man United the week after.
That's exactly the kind of thing that could happen. But either way...
Or Everton. If Everton beat you. No. Oh, my God.
If Everton beats us, so we lose the title and they stay up, that would be my nightmare come true. But it's going to be a really, really exciting game of football. We can't wait for it. I'm going to be a Grand National, but I'm still going to be tuning into as much as I can. And I'm going to leave Liverpool early just so I can get home or get to a pub with you and watch that Liverpool-Man City game. So we're really excited to that. Good luck this week on FPL, everyone. Matt, actually, we haven't talked about your overall rank yet and how much you've shot up the rankings. So why don't you start gloating? Go on.
So this week I am currently sat on 69. Nice. But that is with a -4, 2 points to come in off the bench. So currently I will finish the week on 67, which is not too bad considering the way it's gone for a lot of people. And my overall rank is now up to 37k. So yeah, very much the opposite of you at the moment with the form that I'm on, having struggled and clawed to make that top 100k for quite a while. I'm really on a good run of form. So hopefully that continues going into what should be quite an interesting weekend of football.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Brilliant. Well, thanks for tuning in and listening this far if you have, guys. As usual, we hugely appreciate it. Come and chat to us on Twitter. We're lonely and have terrible opinions and love chatting to you all. You can find us at Big at the Back, myself at Tom Madden 92 and Matt at Higgins 92. And Matt can also be found on the Pretty Bubbles podcast as well.
New episode out today as we look back on our 2-1 win over Everton and ahead to what is possibly West Ham's biggest game other than a playoff final in probably about 30 years on Thursday night against Lyon.
Exciting. Have a great week, guys. Good luck at the weekend and enjoy the title decider. Looking forward to wrapping it all up with you next week.